I believe it's usually around the second Saturday of the month. And we have an open halaqa, ahlan sahlan. And here we talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, or we talk about things that are going on in the world, or what's going on in our Islamic calendar. Excuse me. And thank you, Fariha. Ahlan sahlan. And this week, this month, we're talking about sort of the post-Ramadan feeling, if you will. We've already been out of Ramadan for 3 weeks. Oh, 4, I think. I think it's been 4. I believe that we've begun I believe we've ended Shawwal as of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And so we've been out of Ramadan for an entire month. And so it feels, Ewallah, ya Sarah, Ewallah. And for me, because I was in another country, I almost felt like the day after Ramadan, I was 100 million miles away from Ramadan. But subhanAllah, it's just a month. It's been only a month, and it feels like another age, another time. SubhanAllah, and that really tells us something. It tells us the importance of Ramadan, how much we need it, and it tells us something about how we need to be thinking, what we need to be doing regarding going forward. So today, the title today is called Cultivating a Spiritual Habitat, Reminders for Shawwal and Beyond. So this term habitat is an important word for us. And if you think about a habitat of an ecological habitat and think about that, like what is a habitat? Science people. If you think about a habitat, you know that a habitat is a place where there is a very specific balance. The habitat is between, like let's say a pond, right? So in the pond, there's a balance between the fish that live in the pond, the amphibians that live around the pond, the mammals that live around the pond, maybe a little bit further from that, the plants that grow in the pond, the people that benefit from the animals that live around the pond, and the air that benefits from the plants and the animals that live in the pond, etc., etc. This ecosystem or habitat is a whole system. And we know that, for example, in Hawaii, one of the major crises that occurred in Hawaii is when there was a particular rodent, and it wasn't a rat, it was something else, I can't remember the name of it now, that was introduced to Hawaii that wasn't from Hawaii, and it destroyed certain parts of Hawaii because it was just an animal. But it wasn't part of that habitat. It wasn't part of that space. And it just wiped it out until they found a way to fight back. When we bring in certain types of, other different, a new plant. Sometimes a new plant looks like it's great when we plant it, but when it grows in that habitat, it messes up the habitat. That might be it, Mary. That might be it. So if we think about our own spiritual habitat and we think about that balance that we've created in our lives or that we strive to create, that's when we want to both recognize what are the important plants, what needs to be here, what do we have to make sure, does not disappear from our habitat in order to keep our habitat going well. So why are the scientists worried about extinct or endangered creatures or extinct or endangered plants and animals? Because when an animal or a plant disappears, we don't always understand what the effect of these things are. If we go north to the northern region and you see what's happening with polar bears today, I don't know if you follow polar bears, but they are really struggling, and they're struggling because of global warming, which is a reality. It's a real thing. They're struggling because the ice doesn't stay ice long enough, and so they can't walk out on it and get the seals that they need, and so they're starving to death. And so something as small as that, like a half an inch of water reduction, affects the polar bears. This kind of stuff, like, how would we know that? We wouldn't have known that. And so if we're making the analogy, when we're looking at our spiritual life, we don't always know what is that thing that is going to affect us so much. And oftentimes, I believe, we are led to believe that it's something really big, that we have to make a big life change, huge life change in order to fix things. And most of the time, that's not true. Most of the time, it's neither a big thing that will mess up your habitat, nor is it a big thing that will fix it. Generally speaking, spiritual habitats are very similar to biological habitats in that the smallest thing has a great effect. A big thing we can see. So when we have a habitat, and if a tractor goes crashing through a habitat, we see that, we know it, we can get in there and see what we can do to fix it. But when it's something very, very small, a new insect that's introduced, that begins to eat away at the living plants at the shoreline, for example, and all of a sudden the shoreline weakens and begins to collapse. We don't see this until much later, so it's that small thing that begins to destroy that biological habitat. Same thing with human beings. Something very, very small can enter into our lives and we ignore it because we don't see it. That very, very small thing that begins to affect our spiritual habitat. It could be a moment of arrogance. It could be a moment of refusing to really recognize what's happening. And so, yeah, and undetectable until damage has been done, exactly. And so, in cultivating a spiritual habitat, just like what do the biologists do? They go out there, they check, they learn about the habitats, they find out what they are, and then they observe and watch them to make sure that things are going well. And another example of how we sometimes also we try to fix something and we end up with big questions around, was that the right thing to do? So this book about, the University of Minnesota in the 70s created a new strand of wheat called dwarf wheat. And it was celebrated. It was so celebrated because this wheat could withstand all sorts of difficulty. It could withstand bugs, and it could withstand weather, and it could withstand drought, and it could withstand all sorts of things. And so they were thrilled because they thought, we are going to feed the world with this wheat. And there has been great success in it. But now we have a lot of this, the book called Wheat Belly blames this wheat for people's gluten intolerance, let's say, or people's the inflammation in our bodies today, and how so many people have so much inflammation, gluten sensitivity. Thanks, Mary. Where is this all coming from? We didn't have it before, etc., etc. This book, Wheat Belly, blames it on this wheat that was not original wheat. It was, and so. Is that true or not? I don't know. That's not my point here today. My point here today is to come back to our spiritual habitat. Yes, and our spiritual habitat, and really thinking about, well, how do I create this habitat that will get me from one Ramadan to the next and help me to grow and help me to get over the hard times and over the stuff and recognize the little bugs that are coming in, recognize the rodents that might hurt me, and recognize them because they're going to be different and new, and also create protections around my habitat from anything new coming in, excuse me, and learn how to nurture this habitat, because other things that hurt habitats can be plain old weather. A drought can destroy a habitat. A fire can burn right through one. And then we can talk about how, subhanAllah, how the habitats come back, but it takes a long time. But they do come back, even after a fire. So that's also something good to hold on to if you're struggling. But here we are. So let's really look at the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions and the early people, and create and cultivate a spiritual habit that will carry us through. First of all, let's look at this month. How are we doing? I think that for the most part, we're all struggling. And one of the reasons we're all struggling is because it's summertime. And the winter, it's said, it's a proverb, that winter is Rabi' al-Mu'min. Winter is the spring of the believer. And that's because there's a long night. You can sleep and worship in that night and still get your work done in the day. Summer is a struggle, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a very short night. Excuse me. Getting in sleep and getting in worship and then getting in your work in the day is, subhanAllah, so much harder. And so, but what we need to do is cultivate a spiritual habitat that recognizes our seasons and has different parts of worship to fall back on when one kind gets difficult. So let's really talk about the whole gamut. And one more thing I want to say is that between Ramadan and Hajj is a very short 2-month span. And it's in those 2 months that, subhanAllah, how the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He brings us back to those 10 days. When He brings us back those 10 days. So we had Ramadan, and then we have Shawwal, which many people are fasting in. Some of us are not because it's summer, we have long days, whatever. And then we have the Qa'dah, and not a whole lot of ritual in this month. And so the question then becomes, well, what are we doing? And then all of a sudden, if you're fading, if you're suffering, if you're distant, here come these beautiful days, the 10 days of Hajj, and they're coming. And I want to say this at the top of this because we have the Pilgrims at Home game. I want you to start thinking about who your teams are. If you've never played it before, we'll get some info out very soon about what is this game and what's coming up so that you can be ready and prepared. But if you've played it before, you know how important it is. Start thinking about people you can pull onto your team so you can have a good team and a fun team, and people who can taste the beauty of these, and maybe need to taste the beauty of these 10 days. And that will help us reroute and sort of clean up our spiritual habitat and strengthen it again to move forward to the next months until we reach Rajab, Sha'ban, and Ramadan. So now, but let's make a plan. So we've got a number of things to cultivate a spiritual habitat. We have worship, we have good deeds, and we have relationships. These are the 3 things that cultivate a spiritual habitat, or these are the 3 categories we're going to talk about today. First of all, worship. There are 3 levels of worship. The very first is farud, our farud. And we need to protect our farud and take care of our farud. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and you're setting your alarm for tahajjud and not hearing it and then sleeping through Fajr, you need to take care of that and start setting 2 or 3 alarms to make sure that you're waking up for Fajr. Start with the farud. The farud is our lifeline to our spirituality. And if you miss a farud, that's a moment to push the pause button and to do 2 things. One is to ask, why did that happen? And the other is to look at your collection of other kinds of worship and take from those to help fill in the gaps of what your habitat is missing now that you've missed the farud. So, if you've missed a farud prayer, a Fajr or an Isha, or like as for falling asleep for Isha and not waking up until the morning, for example, then the thing to do is not to give up. Don't say prayers are important. Don't say Ayyallah ma'alish. Don't say, oh, it's okay. It gives you a dull feeling inside, an empty feeling. And also I know that it's very important to ask ourselves and ask what's going on, but be careful letting shaitan walk in that door and tell you, anyway, you're not a person who prays. Anyway, you tried that, it's not working. A'udhu billah. That is simply a rodent trying to eat away at your habitat and destroy it. No, you have all these. You are a person who prays, you missed it. Okay, now what are you going to do? You're going to look at what you can do to make up. There is Quran. There is sadaqah. Of course, you have to pray the prayer, but I'm talking about filling that emptiness inside. So we start with the farud, and after the farud, we go to the sunnah, the extra things, and those are all things that will create our spiritual habitat. I want to talk about Quran too, and reading Quran, because Ramadan is a month of Quran, and very often we fall off of that reading once Ramadan is over. And especially thinking about tajweed, thinking about Arabic, thinking about recitation, thinking about hafaz, memorizing, and all of these things are important parts of Quran that we should have every day, even if it's just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit, even if it's reviewing surahs you already know, even if it's taking on a very short surah, to study and think about verse by verse every day. So I really recommend that part of our spiritual habitat is the Quran. And the Quran as qira'ah, what we read. So if you don't yet read Arabic, that's okay, but you got to learn. That's a tool that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet to fix your spiritual habitat. And so you're reading Quran, you reflect on what you read in Ramadan, and see what you can do every day. If Quran is hard for you, don't set a number of pages, set a number of minutes. 10 minutes of Quran a day, for example. And then if you miss something big, then you make that 30 minutes of Quran. I'm giving examples. Or, for example, 1 verse memorized a day. 1 verse a day. Or, what do you think? Those are very simple ones. Or if you read easily, then maybe Baqarah a day. Baqarah every day will give you strength against shaitan. And will fill you in ways you can never even imagine. My sister-in-law, rahmatullah alayha, she died 2 years ago, and before that, about 3 or 4 years before that, she was attending a wedding, believe it or not, a wedding. And during the wedding, there was a little religious talk, and after that, she went up and spoke to the person who gave the talk, and she said to her, I think she asked the question, like, what is one thing, if you would say, for a person to hold on to, I should hold on to? And this scholar said to her, Surah al-Baqarah, I think she said Baqarah and An'am every day. And so she read those every single day, and she would call them her tigers. And she would read them and choose family members. She was hilarious. She would choose family members and tell them, I'm sending you my tigers. What she meant is, I'm sending you my tigers to protect you, to take care of you, to push away all evil from you. And then if she got mad at someone, she'd say, I'm not sending you my tigers today. So it was so great. People would be like, come on, I need them. Please send them. And that created a spiritual habitat that became a habitat of family as well. So really think about that. And if you can read Baqarah and An'am every day and Yasin, woohoo! Or Baqarah once every 3 days. Or An'am once a week. Baqarah fights against shaitan. Surah An'am brings angels. And Surah Yasin is for what you read it for. So as much as you can do and whatever you can do, Allahu Akbar, alhamdulillah. But think about that in the larger way of how you're taking care of people. If you say, I can't read Quran because I have cooking and I have cleaning, read it and send your tigers out. Send your tigers out to protect your children from the ugliness of this world. Send your tigers out to protect your husband from the predatory women out there. Send your tigers out to protect yourself. Protect yourself from the effects of living in a secular society as a person of faith. I mean, it's think big, and if you just get this much, alhamdulillah, ahsan min bala bala, it's better than nothing. Yeah. Get some tigers into your habitat, so you have them to protect you and stand at the borders. We all need tigers to stand at our borders and say, that's it. Sure. I mean, it's sure. This is not, this is all about you figuring out what you're going to do to have your schedule. Okay, what you're going to do to have your habitat. What you're going to do to create your habitat. So that's Quran. I also want to talk about good. So the Quran, prayer. We said the fard prayers, duha. SubhanAllah, in Ramadan, when we talked about Aisha radiallahu anha, I did extra research in order to come and talk about her. And this is the first time I ever read about how much, or let me put it this way, it's the first time I ever read, and it really stuck with me, about how attached she was to Salat al-Duha, to the morning prayer. And I keep reflecting on that, and I keep thinking about that, and thinking how I pray Duha, but I would like to make that attachment that she had part of my life, which it is not. For me, it's like, okay, I gotta pray Duha and go, I gotta pray Duha and run, I gotta whatever. But like, she would relish in it and slow down in it and lengthen it. And duha was a very important part of her spiritual habitat. Samia, would we choose Baqarah over daily reading? Well, it would be the daily reading. I think when you're asking me over a khitmi, it depends what your daily reading is. But it depends what your daily reading is. If you're doing a juz'a every day and finishing the Quran in a month, and that's, I don't know, I think shake it up sometimes too, though. But maybe do Baqarah once a week. Find a way. We can always find a way to shake up our habitat, to make our habitat stronger and healthier. A quarter a day? Well, if you're doing a quarter a day and you can biodiversity, yes, Mary. So get your biodiversity, Sammy. If you can manage Baqarah every day with that quarter a day, go for it. If not, maybe do Baqarah once a week or once every 3 days or whatever you think. Okay? All right, so we're talking about prayer, we're talking about Quran, and in the world of worship, there's also tasbih or dhikr. And dhikr is the repetition of the tongue to train the heart. And before Ramadan, we were encouraging people to do istighfar, la ilaha illallah, salawat. And now these months are months of where the scholars have not specified certain tasabih for these months. But still, all of those have been good training for us. And to be a person when you're out with a tongue that is saying, La ilaha illallah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. All of these different things that will strengthen your habitat. Make a habit of them and make a habit of your tongue repeating them. If you are struggling with aqidah, if living in the secular world affects you, La ilaha illallah. If you are depressed and feeling down and you don't really know the Prophet ﷺ, salatu salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. If you are feeling like you're missing prayers and you're messing up, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. If you're struggling with marital relations and your relationship with your husband, hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. These are some examples. Okay, and then the last one here, it's not the last one, but for today is dua in the world of worship, and make sure that you're talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Allah and say, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, ask for what you need. Beg Allah for what you need. Turn to Him and ask Him. That is the adab of dua. The adab of dua is to turn and ask. Ask for your children if that's what's hurting you. Ask for the money that you don't have. Ask for the health that you wish you had. Are you struggling with painful joints? Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. Make it a big ask, make it a deep ask, make it a real ask. It is the adab of dua to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. Okay, that's worship for our spiritual habitat. I want to make sure I cover the other two bases. We said good deeds. Now, in our spiritual habitat, we have to think about good deeds. Excuse me. One major good deed has to do with relationships, so I left that one. I made that one a separate category. So here within this space of good deeds, we have charity. We have keeping things clean. We have being a person who pushes back on ugliness and brings forth all that is beautiful of this world. So, for example, first of all, sadaqah. Sadaqah is a good deed. And giving charity is a good deed. And we want to be people of generosity. There's sadaqah of money, sadaqah of time, and sadaqah of emotion. Are you a person who holds your heart back and you don't love people unless they love you back? Love. Are you a person who is stingy with your time and you don't share your time with others? Share your time with others. All of this will help strengthen your habitat. Are you a person who counts your money like this, and has a huge amount of savings and still goes around making people feel like you're poor? Oh, you don't have enough for this, I don't have enough for this. Yeah. What is this? This is not the way of the Muslim. Be generous. Giving. I'm telling you, the more you give, the more you get. The more you keep back, the less you will get. Especially if you're giving with love and goodness and thoughtfulness, without asking for a return on that. Those are good deeds of giving. And on the other hand, and subhanAllah, this morning in a different class, we were talking about Surah Al-Insan and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about one of the qualities of ibadallah are those people, yut'imuna ta'am, people who feed others. In order to be able to feed others, you have to be a person of money yourself. You have to have money, you have to have food. Ala hubbihi, yani ala hubbi. So, in order to do that, it's a good deed to earn money, to go to work and earn your money and give it away, and give a portion away. And I want to rest on this other good deed of going to work or working in your house, whatever your work is. What duty has Allah given you? What work has Allah given you? Are you a homemaker? Then caring for that house is a job. If you, no one likes cheapos. If you work, be there on time. Don't leave to the end. Fulfill your job. Do every part of it, so as to not go near to anything outside, not to mess up your habitat. Are you a student? Get your papers done. Do the work you need to do. Whatever you are, whatever your job is, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, whatever you've taken on as your duties right now, fulfill them. Excuse me. Fulfill them, and these are within your good deeds as well. Also good deeds, caring for your community. Look around to your community. What do they need? How can you help them? How can you care for them? What can you do for them? What skills do you have to bring to your community? Can you run for the board of a masjid? Can you, I would love caring for parents. Can you gather some children together and teach them Quran? What can you do? What can you do for your community to help uplift that community? Can you invite someone else to come and help you do that? Help build things. We'll be going Growing Hope Tour. We'll be going to all of those cities for a week. And I hope you're nearby, and if you are, come out and see us. What talents do you have that you can bring joy to others? That is a good deed as well. The caring for, the doing of good deeds. Alhamdulillah. Reach out. Do the deeds Allah has given you. Do them well. That takes care of your spiritual habitat. And look in your community and see where people might need you. What can you give back in that community? My friend Anse Tamara Gray, who teaches at the Ribat program, 20 years ago, she moved to Florida. Actually, more than that now. Probably 30 maybe. She moved to Florida. And when she went to Florida, she had studied pharmacy. When she went to Florida, she looked around and she said, there isn't a single Muslim here who can do the other Muslims' taxes. So she went to school and became a tax preparer and is now a certified tax preparer and does the Muslims' taxes in Florida. And a few other people's too. What kind of service is this? MashaAllah, a woman of taqwa, a da'iyah, a scholar, a woman who has so much else. She has halaqa, she does all that stuff too, but she was like, what is the need? And so she prepared herself. That is a great deed for that spiritual habitat. And the third thing that we're going to have to create this spiritual habitat is relationships. Our relationships are crucial to creating that habitat. And there are three different kinds of relationships. There's the kinds of relationships that you are responsible for, types of relationships that you are subjected to, and then there are those relationships that you choose. So the first are those you're responsible for. If you are a human being, that means you are born of someone. You have parents, and you are responsible for that relationship. Unless you are 7 or 5 or 6. But if you're an adult, and everyone here, I'm assuming, is over 18 or over 17 or over 15 even, you are responsible for that relationship, for making it good, for making it healthy, for making it special, for making those parents feel special. If your parents have passed, you're responsible for praying for them and reading Quran for them and doing dua for them. So that relationship, those relationships that you're responsible for are these. When you are the child of your parents. If you are a parent of children, then you are responsible for that relationship with those children. If they're children. You're responsible for those young children. Allah has given them to you to raise in faith and beauty and light. And therefore you are responsible for them in that relationship. If you are a teacher, you are also responsible for the students that you have in your classroom. If you are a student, you are responsible for that relationship with your teacher. So it's always back and forth. Then there are the relationships you are subjected to. So if you're subjected to a relationships to people that you have, let's say you have a sister-in-law or a father-in-law or a brother-in-law or someone that you don't really choose them, they came along with a package. That's that feeling of, I'm subjected to this relationship, I don't want to be in it. Most of the time, you can still do something about that. You can push that over to, I'm going to be responsible for this relationship. I'm going to take on responsibility. In this case, where this feels like you're being subjected to something that is harming you in some way, then you can absolutely step back for a moment, think, create boundaries, all this kind of talk that we talk about, but always do all of that with taqwa. All of it with taqwa. Always think about, what would the Prophet ﷺ say about this? And she's affecting me badly, but can I make it so that she doesn't affect me and still can I make a piece of pie? Can I make a pie for her? Can I still be nice to her and just pretend that I don't hear the other stuff? Can I still reach out and say hi, even though I'm hurt? That will create a very strong spiritual habitat. And the third type of relationship, what was the third type? I already forgot. Are the ones we need to choose, I think. The ones we need to choose. And there, you want to choose good suhbah. You want to choose good friends. Choose people that you surround yourself with, people that uplift you and help you. And if someone doesn't uplift you, take a deep breath and just lighten it up. You don't have to walk away. You can still be around for their habitat if they need you, but you can just kind of lighten up. Move away. Move away and find suhbah that's good for you and strong for you and caring for you and uplifting of you. And you be that kind of suhbah for others. Don't be Debbie Downer. If every time someone calls you on the phone, all you're talking about are your problems, you are miserable to be around. If every time someone talks to you on the phone, all you do is complain, nobody wants to talk to you. If you're saying, why doesn't anybody ever talk to me? Ask yourself, are you fun to talk to? Are you a support system? Or are you really miserable? Every time someone has an idea, do you come up and say, no, I don't agree with that. You're not fun to be around. Find a way to have a voice that encourages and supports people, and you will find people to encourage and support you. Find a way to encourage and support others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send you people to encourage and support you. We are habitats. We are habitats to interact with one another. And just like we want beautiful bumblebees to spread our beautiful pollen and create honey and all that stuff, other people want that too. We want to be that for them. And most important here is the relationship with the people closest to us. Very often we take these folks for granted and we expect them to understand. I would say in this day and age, look at the people closest to you first and see how they're hurting. And see how their habitats are doing. And see what you can do to help them. Your husband, if you're married, your husband is first. Talk to him. Stop thinking, oh, he doesn't do this for me, he doesn't do that for me. Okay, what are you doing? Are you this miserable pill who's always talking about how he never does anything for you? Or are you fun to be around and happy and fun to go places? I mean, be the person you want to be around first, and then you will find great changes happening. Also with your children, know that our Muslim youth are struggling. Be there for them. Listen to them. If they are disappointing you, don't let your embarrassment in front of other people make you destroy that relationship and choose other people, whoever they are, instead of your child. Choose your child first. Be there for your child. Be with your child. Forget about this social pressures of this and that, unless it makes sense. It doesn't matter. Even if it makes sense, it doesn't matter in the face of relationships. And let's create a habitat that uplifts us and builds us and carries us to where we need to be. that's what we need in these months. We're coming up to Hajj, and we have pilgrims at home. Start thinking about your team that you're going to get together. And we're working on it. Yeah, so start thinking about your team. We're working on getting everything ready for that. It should be ready very soon to start announcing, putting out the rules and things like that, so you'll be able to find what you need just to get yourself educated about it before the game comes. I will see you next month. This monthly halaqa will be about the Pilgrims at Home game. So come ready to learn about that and ready to get excited about those days. Between now and then, I hope that you find a way to create a beautiful habitat for yourself. That's beautiful, Elena, that you can be that person for them. MashaAllah. You're like a beautiful flower in their habitat. Make sure that you have someone to care for you as well, though. Sometimes when we listen to too much, we soak it up, and then we ourselves begin to hurt. Okay, so I will see you, and I will, if you were on any of our trips, places, or if you want to follow us in your car, we'll see you during the Growing Hope Tour, and see you all soon, all right? So make dua for each other, create that spiritual habitat. Let's work together to create the spiritual habitat, and let's look out for each other's habitats and really think about that biodiversity and that ecosystem and really caring for that spiritual environment. Thank you all very much. Ribat registration will be coming in August, so look out for that. Start thinking about the classes you want to join. Those of you coming for the retreat on the 25th, I can't wait to see you and meet you. Looking forward to that. And those of you who are going to be at ISNA, I will also be at ISNA this year. So I'll meet you at ISNA, inshallah. And if you're anywhere else in the world, let's see if I can get there too. All right. Have our literary conference. Oh, you know what? Can we get our literary conference? If you are a writer or you know a writer, we are taking proposals for our literary conference. Could our admin get that link in? Make sure to get that out to your friends and stuff, those who are taking care of those things. And yes, I'll see you in Milwaukee today. I'm coming to Milwaukee today. Just a quick pop in. All right, so here comes something to show you about something. But make sure you get your link and your proposal in if you are a writer. I'm coming to Canada in October. Yeah, I'm moving around lots. I will be popping into Memphis for just a minute. Yes, talk to Sophia. I don't have a program there, but I'll be popping in for some Memphis barbecue and to go to the Lorraine Motel. So, Sammy, we'd love to have you come and join us for that. All right, so this is the conference, and what about these submissions? Here come the submissions. October 27th in the University of Toronto. So excited about all of these things. Send proposals to that place there, bit.ly/MWLC proposal if you are a writer in any capacity or just want to be a writer. Propose and we'll bring you in. Inshallah, we'll see if we can't get your proposal in as part of the schedule. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.